Edmund Burke said, "Tell me what are the prevailing sentiments that occupy the minds of young men, and I will tell you what is to be the character of the next generation." Think about that. Will our children be assets to society, or will they be liabilities? Will our children be assets to the church, or will they be dependent, if you will, along for the ride? You see, we do have something in our favor, parents. And that is that children are easily taught. Yes. We must act, though, before it's too late. The old saying, we need to strike while the iron is hot, is so true. We need to realize that the fresher the clay, the easier it is to take and to mold and to shape. The longer it sets, the harder it gets. You know, we don't deal with clay as much as we do. Some of us as parents have dealt with Play-Doh. Leave the lid off overnight. You can't shape it. But when it's fresh, you can mold it and make it. And so it is with our children. When we begin, when they're young, realize that early impressions are the ones that are the most lasting. Remember Moses? We see the providence of God in the life of Moses. Here he was. His mom and dad were slaves in Egypt. And lo and behold, the king has said, take all the male children and throw them into the water and drown them in the Nile. His parents said, no, we can't do that. And they hid the baby Moses as long as they could. But as he got older, he got louder. It became impossible to keep him quiet. It became impossible to hide him. So they made the Ark of Bulrushes. You remember that little boat they made from the reeds? And they pitched it and they put it out, not just anywhere in the river, but they put it where they knew it would be found. God's hand was at work. And it was the princess, the daughter of Pharaoh, who found baby Moses. Sent her servants perhaps to bring him to the shore. And when she saw him, she loved him. And she said, I'll take him for my own. And remember, Moses' sister Miriam, she was watching. And she said, would you like me to find a nursemaid among the Israelite women to care for him and to help you? So Moses' own mother was paid to be his nurse. But you know, if we go back and we look at her day, it was probably spending far more than perhaps nursing that baby and the changing of diapers, if you will, and the caring for the little one in the physical way. There was no doubt a great deal of teaching and training of who he was. He was not an Egyptian, he was an Israelite. There was no doubt teaching about who Abraham and Isaac and Jacob were and the promises that God had made to them. And we realize that his influence, the teaching and training he received under her care and tutelage, was what shaped his life, all of his adult life. Because we read in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 24 and 25, by faith Moses, when he was come to years, that is, when he became an adult, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, but chose what? He chose to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Now, as Pharaoh's son, he had everything. He was a prince. He had the silver spoon. But he gave all of that up to be a slave. He gave all of that up to serve God. Why? Because his mother taught him at an impressionable age. You know, it's fascinating what doctors tell us. They tell us that our children react to things in the womb. And, you know, I know of mothers who play classical music and various things so that the baby in the womb can hear them. But along that same line, how many times do our mothers read from the Bible to our children when they're in the womb? We know that our children recognize their mother's voice when they're born. What a way to raise our children. What about the singing of spiritual songs when they're in the womb? What about when they're newborns? What do we sing them? Do we sing them the customary songs, or do we sing spiritual songs? Do we teach them and train them from an early age, even before they're able to talk? What kind of teaching and training are we doing? You know, Solomon said in Proverbs 22 and verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he'll not depart from it. What does it mean? Train. That word train, as I've expressed before, it literally comes from an expression in the Hebrew of a mother bird bringing food and placing it within the beak of her child, her little one. What are we doing? We are teaching, we are training. We're doing more than just saying, do as I say. We're saying, do as I say and do as I do. We're setting an example. In Ephesians 6 and verse 4, you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Too many Christian fathers are AWOL. I've heard too many say, oh, that's mama's work. Mother takes care of that. No. No, God has designed the husband to be the head of the house. And we find a likeness there, a similarity in that relationship with husband and wife as we do Christ in the church. And we see that as husbands and fathers, our role, our responsibility is to teach and to train our children, to bring them up in the right way. It's much more important that they learn these things when they're small, that they grow up seeing the proper example. Children begin learning so early. As a matter of fact, many of the ideals of children and many of their things are set by the age of 5 or 6 years old. And if we fail by that point afterwards, what we do is, at best, double time. Too many parents wait until it's too late. Statistically, most of the people we baptize are between the age of 17 and 34. Now there's play in those numbers. Often it's lower than 17. Of those through the years that I've baptized one person in their early 70s. One. Very few beyond the age of 40 to 45 and older. Why? Because most people are more receptive at an early age. We talk about getting set in our ways. Old-timer used to say, sot in his ways. We become accustomed. We're slow to change. We don't want to change our mind or our thinking. So what we do with our children when they're young is extremely important. 3 major influences upon our children. 1, the world. And when we say the world, ultimately we're saying Satan because the devil is the prince of the world. There is no doubt that the world is exerting a great influence today upon our children. Look at television. The world is influencing our children statistically again, and this varies. Television is on in the average American household 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even if you say, oh, but mine's not on that much, say it's on 2 hours. Some of the cartoons today are adult cartoons. They have not only things that are outright wrong, but a lot is suggestive at best. Language, attitudes. I was trying to find a cartoon the other day, and it showed the little ones in the cartoon talking back, telling their parents no. We're not watching that. They know enough of that on their own. What's taught in television? Well, children are taught how to drink. They're taught how to smoke. If you watch sports, they're taught how to dip and chew. We're taught how that it's okay to have extramarital affairs, premarital affairs. We're taught basically that anything and everything is all right. Today the agenda is among homosexuals. HGTV I thought was going to be, something profitable and enjoyable, but HGTV now focuses on homosexual couples.